Well, I think we're ready to get started here for this deep dive this Monday morning. It's July 25th, almost the end of July. Crazy to think about that, but welcome to everybody joining. Welcome to this deep dive. You know, we like to start Mondays off, the week off, every week this way so that you have information on some of the hottest topics in real estate. You know, and we're gonna do that this morning. You know, if you saw the video, we're gonna keep on this topic of the shift in market. And I'm going to be giving you an update on a couple of things this morning. We're going to kind of do a deep dive into foreclosures, give you some updates on that as we go through. So, you know, a lot of times folks will send me a message after the deep dive. You can email me, david@keepingcurrentmatters.com, and have particular questions or ask things. Do that. I love getting those messages. Love responding and hearing what is on your mind. If there are topics that you say, hey, would you cover this? We're not going to cover everything, but if there are topics that you're thinking about that you want us to cover, I definitely want to hear those. So great Monday morning to you. Like I said, we're going to continue on this theme of the shifting market, and I'm going to break down a little bit of information on foreclosures in the market, and we're going to talk about, you know, the existing home sales report came out last week, down for the fifth month in a row. That was the big headline, down to a seasonally adjusted average 5.1 million sales is what they seasonally adjust that number every month and say, you know, if we were to stop today at the pace, how many homes would we sell, or existing homes would we sell in this country? A couple other things that I wrote down that were interesting from that report. Average days on market in June, 14 days. It's very interesting. I would encourage you to go and look at that report and read it. You can just Google, you know, NAR existing home sales report and pull it up. Interesting information there. Average sales price in this country, $416,000. That is the 124 straight month of price increases in this country. I expect that to, you know, turn at some point, and, you know, for that trend to be one that, you know, folks go, hey, things are shifting, and stay on top of that report. We're certainly going to do that as well as we follow it. You know, I want to break down a couple of things this morning. It seems like the talk of a crash in real estate is at a fever pitch. You know, so many people recording videos saying this market's going to crash, and I want to sort of break that down from inventory, from new builds, and then we'll go into foreclosures, because there are really three ways, you know, a home can come to market, right? An existing home, somebody puts it on the market and sells it, it can come to market. A new build, you know, builders building homes, we get inventory that way. And then there's the third way, that's distressed sales that come to market. So I'm gonna kind of break that down, give you a little bit of perspective here, and I'll share my screen like we always do on the deep dive. You know, if you're a KCM member, all of these slides are available to you in the KCM member area. Here's the bottom line. There's still not enough homes for sale in this country. You know, if we look at the, the inventory across the country, you know, end of June, 1.2 million units on the market, according to NAR. You know, NAR looks at existing inventory plus pending inventory. I wouldn't really call that on the market. If it's pending, most of those sales are going through, obviously, but they talk about that as total unsold inventory. Now sits at a 3-month supply. And I certainly expect that to rise, but let's put that in perspective right now. 3-month supply, you know, last year, the average 2.3 months, 3.1 in 2020. And then if you look back in the rearview mirror, this graphic does that going all the way back to 99. You see, you know, sort of the average in inventory in the spikes up during the housing crisis in red there, where we're up over 8 months of inventory in the real estate market. But the bottom line is there still isn't enough inventory for those that want to buy it. No doubt that sales are slowing due to the rise in the cost to finance a home purchase. But we need more homes on the market. But if we start to break this down, because I said that, you know, the crash topic is, you know, coming at a fever pitch across the country, you have to be able to build a case in one of three ways that we would be flooded with inventory in the market and demand would cease. And you know, I don't think there's enough existing homes. I don't think there'll be enough people that are going to say, hey, we're going to sell our home that are going to cause a crash in the market. The second thing that as of June that has come out is residential construction. This is a breakdown. You can download these slides and go through all this information, but I'll go through it real quick because I don't know if you can see it. Building permits at a rate of 1.6 million as of June, starts 1.5 million, under construction 1.5 million. and housing units completed seasonally adjusted at 1.3 million. So what's interesting about this? Starts down in May and June. Certainly builders are going, hey, you've seen the builder sentiment report come out. They're going, hey, we're not as hot on the market as we are. And so those starts are starting to come off. Clearly, we will complete more than 1 million homes this year. And so we'll see that, we've said the last 14 years, we haven't built the homes that we've needed. Building is coming back, but certainly not enough new builds to fix the deficit of millions of homes that we are undersupplied in the market by. So crash is not coming from new builds. Now, the only thing that leaves is, would there be a scenario where all of these distressed properties would come to market? So I want to break that down to you and give you exactly what the facts are about that, because I've seen people say foreclosed properties are up 700% this month over last year, and we're coming into an area where we're going to see all these foreclosures. Couple of things that I would remind you about in that. First of all, lending standards are still under control. Back in the housing crisis, if you look at this graphic, this is from the Mortgage Credit Availability Index. The higher the index, the easier it is to get a loan. And what did we see back in the bubble? It was very, very easy to get a loan. We joked and said, it was harder not to get a loan than to get a loan back in that time. And lending standards have since adjusted, really from about 2008, 2009, after the crisis, to today. Even during the pandemic, lending standards got tighter. I want to remind you of that because we can remember when jumbos went away for a little while, right? If I don't want to lend $300,000 or $400,000 to somebody, I sure don't want to lend $1 million to someone. And so jumbo products went away during the pandemic for a little bit of time, came back, but lending standards got tighter during the pandemic. You can see that graphically. Why is that important? Well, what brought the 2008 crisis was inflated demand through lower standards to lend. So it's important to remember that. And if you think about that, when you had inflated demand, that led to the crisis, and then these standards shifted. And here's the result of that shift. This is very, very important. Foreclosure activity has been on the way down, and I would use this graphic to show this is what happens when you start to have a tighter lending standard in the housing market. Now, I don't want to overcomplicate this, but you would, if you were kind of debating this topic, you could say, well, foreclosures in the past do not indicate what's going to come in the future. And I would agree 1,000%. But here's what you have to acknowledge is around 2008 and 2009, when lending standards got a lot tighter, later on in that, the Dodd-Frank Act, qualified mortgage was introduced, and all of those things, it got harder to borrow money. What happened then? Well, the number of defaults has been on the way down. Now let's take 20 and 21, those years, off the table for a minute. But every year from 2011 on, we saw less foreclosure filings in the market. Why? Because we had a better qualified borrower. Okay, so when you have a better qualified borrower, less defaults, and we've certainly seen that. Well, 20 and 21 were anomalies in the market. The moratorium on foreclosure, folks, you couldn't even start a foreclosure on somebody who was in a house in a lot of places, and you couldn't evict someone in a lot of places. And so we didn't see as many, and we're coming out of that. So expect to see more foreclosures as we come out of that moratorium. If you want to compare the first half of this year to the first half of the years going all the way back, sort of same look at this, it's this right here. This is a look at first half foreclosure activity by year. This year going all the way back to 2008. And you see right there, the first half of this year, 164, almost 165,000 foreclosures, about the same as 2020, not quite where we were, almost 300,000, not a little bit more than half in 2019, well below 2018. You can see that, okay? So that puts that into perspective. We're starting to see more come into the market, but I got to tell you, with the decline in foreclosures that we've seen over the last 9 years due to a better qualified borrower, we don't have the scenario that we had in 2008, where we had a borrower that really didn't have to qualify and then got foreclosed on. And so if we go back to that initial statement I made, existing homes that come to market, new homes to come to market, and then foreclosures, there just isn't a case to be made for foreclosures. One thing that we followed closely during the COVID years, over the last couple of years on the deep dive, was forbearance. And I've got an update for you on that because, we've stopped covering that because it kind of became not a big deal, in what was going on. I'm not saying if folks are going through that, it's not a big deal to them. But nationally, it turned into a program that worked. And this is the latest look as of June 30th this year. So go back 2 years to the start of the pandemic and what happened to those coming out of foreclosure. Well, if we break this down in this green area of the pie graph, 36.4 were paid in full when they came out of forbearance. They made their monthly payments, they paid their loan off, or they brought what was past due, they brought it current. The second portion in blue there, 45% worked out a repayment plan with their bank. They either went through a rate and term refinance or a modification, or they tacked it on the back end and said, hey, when you sell the home, you'll just pay off the second, but it worked out. 18% are still in trouble. They either don't have a loss mitigation plan or they're already in some short sale deed in lieu, things like that. The latest numbers are about 400,000 people in forbearance right now in this program, but still not enough inventory right there. If every one of them came on the market tomorrow, would cause a housing market crash. They'd be snapped up pretty quickly. But the bottom line still remains that if somebody had to sell today, they have options, they have equity due to the rise in prices over the last couple of years, and they can get out of that situation where in 2008 they couldn't. They literally owed more on the home than it was worth, and they walked away. The term strategic default came into play or came into existence, and that was the bottom line. But 4 out of 5 people that went through the pandemic and took advantage of forbearance walked out whole, either paying it off or going through a workout with their bank. That's not a number that's talked about, right? There's not a case to be made for foreclosures to sort of be this tidal wave to hit the market and cause a challenge. If you go back to Adam Data, they're the ones that follow all this information. Rick Sharga said this: foreclosure activity across the United States continued its slow, steady climb back to pre-pandemic levels in the first half of 2022. While overall foreclosure activity is still running significantly below historic standards, the dramatic increase in foreclosure starts suggests we may be back to normal levels sometime in early 2023. So certainly distressed properties coming to market. I'm not saying that people won't be affected by the slowdown in the economy, and we certainly want to help them, and that is a critical issue for them, but not a case to be made for this mass amount of foreclosures across the country. The bottom line with inventory right now, and I would use this graphic if I was talking to anybody about it, have it on your phone, have it on your iPad, whatever you use, is we're still in a seller's market. If you look at the month of inventory on home right now, 3 months of inventory, neutral market being around 6-7 months of inventory in the market, still well below that in inventory across the country. In just a minute, Jess, I'm going to see if we have any questions that folks have asked today, but I want to give you one thing. If you want a resource, How to Succeed in a Changing Real Estate Market, you can go download that. And I think the comment will be pinned here in the comments if you want to go download this. And really, for you, for your team, for those you're working with, what is a good perspective to have in this changing real estate market? Go and download that. So I'm going to pause for a second. Jess, any questions? I'll look here as well. That are out there that folks have today.
Sure, Dave. I know I saw one come in from Mike who asked, what is the HPES that you referenced in some graphics?
Well, that's a home price expectation survey. Where did I reference it?
He just asked what it was that you referenced in some graphics. So he might just need
just a general question. Yeah. So yeah. HPES is a home price expectation survey. It comes out every quarter. We follow it here at Keeping Current Matters. It's a collection of 100 economists, housing market experts, those that are, in the know in housing, and they kind of say, where is housing going? Typically what we follow there is what is their 5-year outlook for home price appreciation. So Mike, hopefully that helps with that question.
Yes, thank you, Dave. And I did just see a question that came in from Jill who asked, hi, do we know when the fall guides come out?
I do not have that date in front of me. I should know that. I don't know if there's anybody else on the call or in the
I know the summer ones just came out about a month ago. We can definitely get that information for you. And if you're a member, this is a great plug to join us in the members only Facebook group. We do a monthly content calendar release, so you know when all your content drops are coming throughout the month. So definitely join us there.
Yeah, somebody emailed me this weekend asking if they could get the buyer and seller guides printed. You can take them to your local printer and get those printed out. Many people do that. Great leave behind for open houses. If you're a KCM member, you can also use that widget on your website where people can download it. You get their information like a little lead gen piece and use that. But no doubt it is a great way to educate those that you're working with on this market. We produce that every quarter, like Jess mentioned, and it has everything up to date on what's happening in real estate. So any others?
Awesome. I think that's all that I see, unless you caught anything I didn't, Dave. That's all the questions that I saw.
I see one on here. Brittany said, do we have access to these charts? Yes. If you are a KCM member, you can go into the KCM member area. There's the deep dives that are archived. I think that we archive 6 or 7 at a time. You can go in and download those, use these graphics, use everything on there to get this message out, to have on your phone with those that you're working with. If somebody says, hey, what about foreclosures? What's going to happen? We've got all these slides that we just went over to talk about lending standards, talk about actual foreclosures in the market. When are we going to get back to normal foreclosures? What's happening to those that were affected by COVID? So you can be the expert in that topic. So as always, great to start this weekend or this week this way. Thankful for everybody that joins. Jess, if there's no other questions, and we'll wrap up on that.
Yep, I think we are all good.
All right, sounds good. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week on the Deep Dive.